First of all, Spike, so glad you're sitting down. After 18 consecutive home losses, the Knicks won tonight. I repeat, the Knicks won tonight, defeating San Antonio 130-118. Columbia.
Welcome everybody to the TKW Podcast. It's cause for celebration on the pod today. I'm here with my co-host Kyle Maggio.
What's going on, everyone?
You can follow Kyle at Kyle Maggio on Twitter. Also joining me on the pod, Bryan Gibberman.
As a Michigan and a Knicks fan, today did not go the way I expected it to go.
It's today's been full of surprises for all of us. You can follow Bryan at Bryan Gibberman on Twitter. You can follow me at Corbo Anthony, and while you're at it, we got plenty of excitement over on the Knicks Walls Twitter feed tonight. This win feels good. I mean, this is first win in 2.5 months at home. You're not going to get more excitement out of that feed than what you're going to get right now. So go follow us there. Go follow the TKW Podcast feed. Head to the knickswall.com. We got a lot of draft coverage coming out soon. Mike Cortez is going to have some of that. Plenty of interesting pieces there. Again, it's going to be a good day over there tomorrow with the win just to celebrate. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you're over there right now. If you're using a podcast app, please leave us a review and give us a nice rating. We'd very much appreciate that. And now that I'm through all that, let's sit back and appreciate this for a second, guys. We had some pretty stellar performances from a lot of players tonight. It ended up with a big win for the Knicks. They beat the Spurs 130-118. It gave the crowd something to cheer about. It's pretty good day overall. Bryan, I don't know. There's a lot of different places we could go here, but is there any player in particular you want to start with tonight?
It was, I'll just, in general, it was their best. Okay. And I thought it was their best performance of the season.
I wholeheartedly agree. That was the most fun I've had watching this team this season.
It was the Hawks game opening night was fun. Yep. The Bucks,
the last win at home.
The Bucks win was fun, but just the way it was, the players who contributed and really put their imprint on this game was probably made it, in addition to just the best, the most significant because of how we saw some of these guys able to contribute to winning basketball in a way they haven't always.
And it's a lot of it really that got me most excited was just how they kind of played together out there. It was great. I mean, you had even at the very end of the game, you had Rebecca Harlow talking to Damyean Dotson and Mitchell Robinson, and Damyean Dotson basically said he had his career high in threes tonight, and is this his career high in points too? 27?
No, he had 31 against the Heat last year.
Gotcha. All right, so high scoring game for him. Definitely, he had 8 3-pointers. They ask him about it, and immediately he goes, Dennis with 13 assists. He would just pass the ball out as he's driving, and I'm over there. It's like the chemistry these guys are starting to develop is great, and we haven't even talked about Mitchell Robinson yet, who had maybe his best game of his career, one of his best ones, maybe if not. But just he's catching lobs out there too. It's just these guys really are. The guys who we want to see sticking around together are really starting to make an impact at the same time, and that's the most encouraging thing you can get right now.
Here, Kyle, let me set you up to talk about Dennis with a stat for him. He had 13 assists.
Okay.
7 of those were for threes, and he assisted on 6 of 8 of Dotson's 3-pointers.
Yeah, I had a couple of things to say about Dennis Smith and the Dotson pairing. But first of all, I had a tweet earlier today where, like you're saying about the right guys succeeding, being able to enjoy that. I said I don't want much for the rest of the next season. This really shouldn't be that hard. Just play Dennis Smith Jr., Dotson, Knox, Mitch, Trier, infinite minutes, as much as you can. And if Frank is healthy, him as well. That lineup should have their foot on the gas nonstop. Just let them get out and run. And they played fast as hell tonight. And that's Dennis Smith, I thought, had his best game as a Knick. The 30-point game was really terrific and fun, and certainly a very good game. But he had 19 points, the 13 assists. Like you said, 6 of them were to Dotson. I just thought he was tremendous. A couple of really nice defensive plays and steals too. But tonight, I don't even think he had a turnover, if I'm not mistaken. I just want to check my zero, right?
Yep, 0.
He was in total control. And, the passes he were making were all those ones we were talking about. Like when he penetrates, there's always a guy open. Every single time there's a guy open because they are terrified that he's going to get to the rim. They always send the help guy to him immediately and early. So all he kept doing tonight was finding Dotson, who that's the help guy. That's the man. Every time they were leaving Dotson, every time. I tweeted a couple of the clips from TKW, and Dotson had nobody around him for half of the game. And he just kept finding him. And it was really simple. It was always a lot of it was opposite action. A couple of them were really athletic plays that Dennis had to make. But, he got to the paint. He kept his head up. And if it wasn't there, he wasn't forcing it. He was pulling it back, which we have discussed that on the pod. It was nice to see him do it. So I was just really, really impressed all around by his game. And Dotson just being the player we've all been high on for a while, that's his game, is just catching and shooting and spotting up, and he just crushed it tonight. And that's before and I'll set you up now for Mitch, because Mitch had I think 5 blocks in his first 10 minutes. Mitch was just, I know he had 3 in his first 5 minutes before he took a seat. So I mean, he was tremendous, even just offensively, just the way he was rolling tonight and cutting with Dennis too. It was really just both sides of the ball tonight. It was really nice to see for most everybody.
And Dennis had that stretch in the third quarter where he
just went nuts.
He was just in complete control of the basketball game, pushing it at the right time, attacking the Spurs defense before it was set, pulling back if it wasn't there and slowing the tempo, making those passes where he was driving and flicking it out for 3-pointers. I don't even know how he was making some of those passes. They were incredible. Those are the passes that elite players in the league make. He played the difference in Smith. He had 17 points on 19 shots. Mudiay had 19 points on 10 shots, and how much better Dennis Smith was despite being less efficient is just stark. How the offense was running, it was the difference between it was so very obvious. How much better they were performing with Smith on the court compared to Mudiay.
The floor opens just so much when you have a guard who can do that stuff that he can do, and it's just. It really does make a world. Mudiay can get into the paint too. I don't want to discredit him, but he does it slower. He'll back guys in sometimes, or he just takes slower step. It's not the same effect. When
he also doesn't really know what to do when he gets in there. Yes, that's the biggest difference that I noticed between Mudiay and Dennis Smith Jr. is just the confidence when they actually get to the rim. Dennis Smith is he can throw up a wild layup at times, but he's not doing things like Mudiay will do, put up a one-legged step back, kind of half layup jumper thing, 5 or 6 feet away from the rim. Or, just basically try to bulldoze in there and then just lob it up there and hope he gets a foul. Dennis Smith actually has kind of a manner of seeing the rim and seeing his, seeing where the help defense is coming from, seeing where his man is, and realizing whether, which side of the rim he's going to go up around or if he's going to pass it out like he did so much tonight.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Kyle. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say real quick, in all of MSG keeps talking about Mudiay is the best passer on the team, but it really is very obviously Dennis Smith. And then I tweeted from the TKW account tonight, Dennis Smith Jr. is exactly what David Fizdale thinks Emmanuel Mudiay is. Like whatever it is he thinks and always tries and always says about Mudiay, like that's just what Dennis Smith Jr. is and is a better basketball player. You know, like I get that Mudiay is his guy, and I think that's his reasoning for the public backing. And I don't think that's overall a bad thing. It sounds insane, but like there is something to publicly backing a guy like that and how that reflects on the league and the rest of the players. But that was basically it. Just it's stark, like to your point about the impact that they have. So I'm very excited to have that kid on our team.
Mudiay has the last 2 games. He has 34 points on 26 shots. He's made 5 of 9 threes, but he has 7 turnovers to only 2 assists. And so and you think about it, this is with him shooting well from 3 and as efficient as he could possibly be tonight. Like, this is his best, and it's not good enough. That's where the problem is. Even when he has these good nights, he's not impacting the game in a really positive fashion outside those plays where he is scoring. And he doesn't do that well enough for him not to be able to round out the rest of his game with such negatives.
Right. It's the activity that you also see from Dennis Smith Jr. that you don't really see from Mudiay. Like, the perfect example is just like how he got into the lane, and got that steal even at the end of the game in the last minute of the fourth quarter. It just he just seems to have more of an awareness out there. He seems to be a bit more active. He's just I just trust his ability to see the ball and just kind of make sense of where other players are on the court. It just seems so much more like, it just seems like, honestly, what Mudiay would look like if he was fully realized is probably where Dennis Smith is right now.
I don't think Mudiay has Smith's vision as a passer.
He doesn't, because we haven't seen Mudiay make. And again, not to be a total indictment against Mudiay. Again, he has improved this year, but Dennis made 2 passes today that were like jump passes to Dotson in the corner, and they were from the opposite side of the court with like almost no lane of vision to where Dotson was. And then he would throw these like over his head jump passes, like just on a line. And I just don't see that kind of stuff from Mudiay. He's made some good passes for sure, but he's never made some like next level kind of stuff like that, where he just has the read and he makes the read at the correct time. I don't always see that from Mudiay.
It's fascinating, but it's a little bit of Mudiay really had like kind of control of the whole thing early on there. Obviously, Dennis Smith took over as the game went along, but like we gotta talk a little bit more about these other players on the team and what they like contributed. Like Kevin Knox had a bit of a slow start today, but he ends up going 8 for 18. He hasn't really hit on his 3-pointers, but 19 points to 10 assists. He gets into the game there. You even had Lance Thomas with like a really good 30 minutes. We talked about Mitchell Robinson a little bit, but just all of these guys were really, really productive tonight. All right, let's talk about Lance Thomas for a second here before we get into these other guys. What do you make of him getting 30 minutes tonight? Do you think he'll even be able to play another minute the rest of the season, or is he just going to be too worn down?
I don't think he should have got 30 minutes tonight, but I'm not going to complain about it. He played well tonight. The team played well as a whole. There wasn't he didn't do anything poorly. I don't think so. I don't really, I obviously you would prefer that he doesn't play, but he came in, did a good job tonight. Team played well, so can't really say a whole hell of a lot.
Fizdale was big on him in the post game.
Yeah, and I do think there's something to that.
Yeah, he's got that leadership thing to him, and honestly, like without it's interesting how the minutes were balanced out tonight overall. I mean, Hezonja not playing is not a big deal, but Cornet not getting any minutes is kind of interesting to me. But other than that, like I really don't have that many complaints about how Fizdale deployed the roster tonight. Do you guys?
No, I thought he corrected his biggest mistake from the game before with the Mudiay Dennis. He didn't fall in law. Even though Mudiay was making shots, he stuck with Dennis, and Fizdale deserves credit to that. But why I don't have a problem with Lance's 30 minutes tonight, you had Knox at 33, Smith at 30, Dotson at 37, Mitch at 30, Trier at 28. All the guys who you need to play. But what you do see, you see how it's going to be very easy for them to carve out minutes for Frank. Like Mudiay's be able
That's what I was going to ask you.
Mudiay's still going to be able to play 19, 20 minutes. And Frank can just take those 11 Jenkins minutes, and he can take the 4 Ellenson minutes, and he can take some of Thomas's minutes. So you very easily see the path to Trier, Mudiay, Mitch, Dotson, Dennis, Knox are basically what we're looking at for the rest of the season from the wing position, besides Mitch, at the wing and guard positions.
So I guess that pretty much, the Kadeem Allen experiment is all but over at this point.
Not necessarily. I think that when he comes back, I would hope anyway that he gets a fair shake with some of Mudiay's minutes. I think Jenkins should take the immediate seat along with Ellenson, like Brian said. But then I do think the way Allen played on both ends of the ball, that's really just not right to sit a guy like that. Mudiay, fine. Like tonight, he had a good shooting game. He had a fun couple of months to begin the season, but Allen was really busting his ass on both sides of the ball, and really filling up the box score and having a real impact. So that's not really fair to. I would be a little bit upset about that.
I don't think it happens. I think that he's pretty much G League bound for the rest of the season. I think that Fizdale is kind of like at a point where he knows who he's going to play at this point, and he's not going to. I think I have a feeling that this lineup plus the minutes that are going to be carved out for Frank is going to be what we see for the rest of this the 20 or so games we have left. A little over 20 games.
And the center minutes are just going to continue to be split by when Jordan's healthy, it'll be Jordan and Robinson. But that doesn't impact really the rest of the lineup. And I'd be fine with them mixing in some Cornette if they at the 4, if they play the zone with him and Mitch. But outside of that, unless he's playing center, he shouldn't play anymore either.
Yeah, and you know what? We can even go back a little bit to the Timberwolves game too. You started to see signs of the right kind of guys starting to play some minutes too, and I think like you were saying, Brian, that like Fizdale definitely corrected his mistakes after that. But like you had Trier playing 30 minutes, you got Hazonia picked up the DMP. You even had Vonleh get a couple of minutes in there too. It's just. Now it seems like he's kind of maybe hit on something here, and obviously they had some pretty good chemistry. And if they can parlay this into the future games down the road, we may have a chance to pick up a couple of wins here. How do we feel about the Knicks picking up 2 wins in their last 3 games?
I like watching good basketball. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care.
It was really a relief.
I know that everybody's going to say the losing is good and the tanking. And, I think the Suns somehow really, honestly, miraculously are the worst team in the NBA, even with Devin Booker. It's truly something to behold. And
DeAndre Ayton. That's crazy how bad
they are. They are just a miserable NBA franchise. And that is saying something. Considering
they thought they were going to be a playoff team this year.
Everybody says that about their team.
I know,
it's
but
silly.
just the Ariza contract and everything, it's just
it's been a rough. But I don't know. Yes, the tanking's good, and yes, being in second means we could fall to the 6th pick and not just the 5th pick, and yes, that's probably what's going to happen with the Knicks. I understand. I've been prepared mentally for the 5th pick for months now. So this does not bother me. Seeing a young player that we trade, we traded our franchise player to get back Dennis Smith Jr. and a couple of picks. That's basically it. That's the piece of value. And seeing that young player do well means something to me. So when there's a nice night like this, when their lottery pick plays well, when their 2nd round pick plays well, like when these guys are all having career nights or just really better games of their careers all at once, It's nice, and I'll enjoy it. I'm not going to sit here and talk about the tanking crap for one night. It was just a fun win.
The part that I found super encouraging, you mentioned the lottery pick playing well, but was some of the chemistry that Knox and Robinson had together. Pretty much every Knox bucket outside of, I think, the 1-3. And so was basically him and Mitch playing two-man game and him actually scoring.
That one pass.
Yes, that too. That was that was at the end. It's like he got buckets off it all game, and then he made the read to make the right pass. Knox actually contributed to winning. He played well and helped the team win. There can't be more than a handful of games we've been able to say that about him this year. And I loved everything. He started the game 0 for 4, so he went 8 for 14 the rest of the night. He was 1 of 6 on his threes, which means he was 7 of 12 on twos, and he sucked at twos all year. So this was like that glimpse that you're like, shit, this is what this guy can be if he ever puts it all together, because that's a really damn good player.
And he drove a lot tonight too. Like, he doesn't have all the free throws to back it up. Like on like in December when he was driving a lot and he was getting to the line like 7 times a game. That didn't happen tonight, but he got to the line more than a few times, like 4 or 5 legitimate times where he scored or got fouled, or he had a couple. I think he had a couple of floaters, a nice layup. I mean, he was getting to the rim. And we've said this on the pod for a while now. But that's how he is confident as a scorer. Like, that's when he's effective, is when he's attacking first and foremost and effectively. It just opens up the rest of his game, and normally he shoots a little bit better. And, after he stopped settling in the early going there, he just started attacking. Then he got the floater to drop, and then it was another one, and then it was a layup, and all of a sudden, then he pulls a 3, and the 3 is like that's how his game sort of operates, is what we've seen this year. So that was encouraging just to kind of see him get back to that. Then it kind of rubbed off on the rebounding as well. He had a nice night. I think he had 10 he finished with. So, I mean, it was impactful. Like, he was basically, running into the paint all game, whether he was going for, to score, for a rebound. I mean, he was very active, and it was evident. So I enjoyed that very, very much.
How much do you guys think that just the team, like, improving and rebounding in general helped them, on the court? Like, Mitch obviously was able to put together a great rebounding performance. He walked away with 14. Knox rebounded well. Thomas was able to, like, gather up a couple of boards. Even Dennis Smith had some rebounds. Like, I feel like just being able to control the ball and not letting, your opponents get, a ton of offensive rebounds. Like, not only are you obviously going to protect more points that way, but just, I feel like that's got to be huge for just your on-court energy and just how you're carrying yourself throughout the game in general. It's just got to be so defeating when you just, like, are giving up possession after possession to the next team.
Mitch's improvement in that area is a huge, huge, huge development in that team. And he's not just, like, standing near the rim and getting easy rebounds. There's rebounds that he's grabbing over guys, that he's grabbing through guys, that he's fighting to get. He's getting some legitimate rebounds. And he played 30 minutes tonight. He got the 2 quick fouls and then didn't have a foul for a long time after that and was able to play that much. It's just the strides this kid has made from summer league to now. I'm sure I've said it before. It's incredible how good he is, and it's time. Like, he's their best young player, and it's time to start. Like the 30 minutes tonight, like, it's go time every single night. Enough.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how he's, like, literally the top prospect they have right now.
You guys want to hear a fun stat about Mitchell Robinson per our Reed Goldsmith?
Yes.
So after tonight, all season, Mitchell Robinson has had more offensive rebounds total than defensive rebounds. Coming into tonight, he had 100 total offensive rebounds and 99 defensive rebounds. And after tonight, he finally has more defensive rebounds than offensive rebounds by, I think, 1 now.
Wow.
And the free throw shooting continued to be good.
Okay, 5 of 7 from the line tonight.
let's turn to our old friend Don Nelson and check in on what he is up to these days.
Coach, I know you live in Hawaii, right? So
Yeah, I've been smoking some pot.
It's legal now.
But I never smoked when I played or coached, so it's new to me. But anyway, I'm doing that, and I'm having a pretty good time. It's more legal now than it's ever been, and so I'm enjoying that. And,
Don Nelson's a liar if he expects me to believe that he has never smoked weed while he was during the season while he was coaching.
Is this someone on record as saying that he used to smoke with Steven Jackson?
Well, Steven Jackson's on record with saying.
Okay,
What's that story?
There's one story that I know in particular of at the very end of the season. So maybe this doesn't necessarily back up what I was just saying, but at the very end of the season, it was, I believe, Steven Jackson and, God, I'm blanking on who the other player was with him at the time.
Is it Baron Davis?
It was Baron Davis. Yes, it's Baron Davis. Thank you. So, yeah, it was Steven Jackson, Baron Davis, and, the end of the season comes along. They get their, I guess whatever kind of thing you need to get at the end of, like, your paycheck for that year. And they're, like, very excited because they can start smoking weed again. And then all of a sudden, Don Nelson comes barreling down the hall, goes over to them and, like, is just, like, laughing and jumping up and down with them. And he's just, like, hugging them that they get to go and smoke weed at that point. Like, so if they didn't go and have just the greatest hot box of all time, then I don't know what they were doing.
And Davis and Jackson are the one, for the people who were listening to the clip and didn't see it, are the ones laughing and making noises on the dais with Nelson. And Steven Jackson is lifting his hands in the air and, like, raising the roof, or doing, like, a bootleg raising the roof, just pumping his arms from the excitement.
It's a power trio. It's a power trio friendship that I think it stands the test of time.
At this point, I think we have to admit that firing Don Nelson was the biggest mistake in Knicks history, since this is who Don Nelson is.
What year did they fire Don Nelson again? I want to try to figure out how we could have reshaped history at this point.
It was the year Van Gundy took over. I want to say it was like 96, 97, maybe.
It's a pivotal time. I mean, you're talking about possibly the difference between winning a title or not with 99. I mean, I'm just saying that if maybe Don Nelson, obviously the coolest man in the NBA, was coaching the team, we would have had some sort of advantage here. I don't know.
He would have gotten John Starks high and kind of cooled him out a little bit on the court instead of him being so
That's what I'm saying. He would have passed off a little bit more. Or maybe hit some of those shots. I don't know. World will never know.
So,
all right.
Did we lose Kyle?
Remember when Baron Davis was a Knick and he smoked an invisible blunt?
Yes.
Yo, oh my God, that was one of the greatest moments. That was the highlight of my journalistic career so far has been writing about Knicks memories on 420. But Baron Davis has some incredible stories, and the invisible blunt is definitely just probably the highlight of his Knicks career. There's also the thing that came out a little bit later about him getting abducted by aliens, which was just fascinating too. Do you remember that one? Where Baron Davis claimed to have been abducted by aliens.
I must have missed that.
Oh my God! Hold on.
I'm positive I missed that. Yep. I never in my life.
All right. I have a CBS Sports article here from 2013. By July 12th, 2013, written by Zach Harper. Says Baron Davis says he was abducted by aliens about 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, he said on a podcast that he was driving from Vegas to LA, and along the way, he was abducted by aliens.
I believe him.
I do too. He says, I see this light and it's a truck. And I said, oh fuck, this is going to be traffic. Davis said, driving. And the next thing you know, there's a steel thing and these crazy looking people, half human and half ugly looking motherfuckers. They were poking me on the nose, looking at my eyes. They had my hands tied, and the next thing you know, I was in Montebello, dude. Burning rubber on the way back to LA at 4 o'clock in the morning.
I don't even know.
The man's a legend.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
I think the only thing I could do is tell everybody to please, remind you to go follow the Knicks Wall on Twitter. Follow my co-hosts here. Follow Bryan Gibberman. Follow Kyle Maggio. Follow myself. Subscribe to us. Give us that 5-star review. YouTube channel. Keep it coming with the comments. I haven't had a ton of time to get back to you guys lately, but we promise we'll be back on you soon. Let's ask us some questions at TKW Podcast. If I see some of those coming in, that account's starting to get that back up and running a little bit. So please feel free to reach out to us there. Now, we don't necessarily have a ton to talk about now. All-Star break is over. The games are back. People are kind of paying a little bit more attention to what's going on in the court. So we don't have a ton to tell you on our tea leaves segment of today's show. But we do have a fairly notable discussion that happened between one Zach Lowe and one Ian Begley on the Lowe Post podcast, in which Zach Lowe said he was pretty sure that it was something about Porzingis not wanting to play with Durant that was, kind of the driving force behind all of this. And it's interesting. All right, let me find the actual quote here. He says, "I don't think he was psyched about playing with Durant. I don't know how directly that was verbalized to the Knicks, but I'm confident that it wasn't something that was his plan A. He wanted to be the face of the franchise." What do you guys make anything of that? Is that it's one of the things where I'm struggling. Like, is that just common sense, or is that actually something that the Knicks took into consideration here?
I kind of hinted at it on the pod.
I think it was right after the trade, not the emergency pod. I think maybe the next one, or I don't know. But I thought about it, and I was like, what if, say they did know Durant was coming, and what if, part of that wink deal was, his agent, Rich Kleiman, was going to get a position in the Knicks front office, which is rumored to be something that may be happening, right? So what if, I'm thinking, you already know that they have a tense relationship with the Porzingis family. So you already know there's not a lot of trust there. So what if, they were envious of that? What if they knew? Like, we know Durant's coming, and we also know that his agent's getting the position, yet you're not really doing some of the things, or, that Giannis Porzingis wanted. So I do wonder, and I speculated that, and now all of a sudden, KP doesn't want to play with Durant, but he wants to win. It doesn't make sense. He was frustrated with the lack of direction here, yet it's speculated that he wouldn't have wanted to play with Durant. It's very strange. So who did he want to win with? It's very. I don't understand what that means. It's counterintuitive. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
That's the first. Like, I haven't taken shots at Porzingis for wanting to leave at all. I was perfectly fine with it. It was a completely logical decision, and it's fine. But this is the first time that I got kind of annoyed at him, because, come on, dude. Like, you don't want to play with Kevin Durant. You don't want to win. You talk about winning. You've bitched about the team not winning, and then you're presented with an opportunity to win, and you're like, "Nah, I'm good. That's not what I want." I'd be fine with Kyrie, but I wouldn't be fine with Durant. Get out of here. And I just wanted to say, Don Nelson was 95, 96. 96, 97 was the first Heat Knicks brawl. I'm an idiot.
Well, again, the KP thing, I have a lot of mixed feelings on it, and I don't want to dive too far into what's already known about this whole thing. But yeah, it's a silly look to say that, you don't want to play with Kevin Durant because you want to be the face of the franchise, essentially, is what's being hinted at here. But are we sure that Zach Lowe has his facts together here? Like, are we sure that are we sure that people, not necessarily that he's not hearing things, but that people aren't just blowing this whole thing out of proportion because this is, a very dramatic storyline to come out of a very dramatic team in this league?
For sure, it's a little of both, but he's as plugged in as anybody. I mean, he was verifying some of that LeBron to LA stuff last year too. So I don't think, we said it, I think
I don't doubt Zach Lowe's credentials at all. I'm just saying that people, I don't doubt that people wouldn't love to make a bigger situation out of all this.
I'm sure, but then he even sort of verified the James Dolan, Bill Simmons stuff too, which was a little bit surprising because that seemed like they put the kibosh on that pretty quickly. And then Zach Lowe was like, "Hey, I heard the same shit," and it's like, "Oh, well." Again, like he's plugged in. He's as fair as anybody. He seems to be right pretty often when he does go on record and say something. So I would tend to believe him, and it lines up with a lot of the stuff the national guys have said, and I think he's telling the truth, at least from what he's been told.
There's a couple reasons why I believe what comes from Zach Lowe. One, I trust his judgment in what he'll say publicly and what he'll choose to hold back. Two, he's not a Woj. He's not a Shams. He's not a Stein. He's not always fishing. He's not fishing for breaking news. So he doesn't have to say things for people in order to get information. In the end, he's an analyst, and I think people around the league just respect him and believes he does a good job. So he's plugged in and he's talking to people. So he comes across stuff and he knows stuff, but he doesn't have to put his integrity aside at times to be able to get the information he has access to. So that's why I think that's a really credible place for that to come from.
It's interesting. Does it change anything in the long run, though? Like, does this... obviously, KP is a distant memory to most Knicks fans at this point, but, does this does this solidify any more the Durant to New York rumors? Does this push this, proverbial, arrow a little bit more in the direction that we're talking about? Like, it's because now you have people who are inside, even players here who are pretty sure that this is a done deal. And you've seen it annoy on both sides now. If this is what's really happened, you have not only is Durant now upsetting Draymond Green from earlier in the season and his own team, but you have him now kind of disrupting things on teams that he's not even on. He disrupting the kind of flow with New York, and it's not a great look to be pissing off both sides of the players involved here, but at the same time, you got to put that blame on KP for just being annoyed about it in the first place. I mean, not wanting to play with Kevin Durant just seems like a silly thing, in my opinion.
It does make me feel like the Durant thing is a little bit more legitimate. I still don't... I'm never going to fully believe it until I see it. But when the Zach Lowe's have come on record now, in addition to the Mark Steins and the Chris Haynes and just pretty much all the guys who normally get this stuff correct and are on tap to slowly leak things like this, like they did for the LeBron to LA thing. It's starting to be very evident what they're trying to do here. That said, with a guy like Durant, who, up until the second before he signed with the Warriors was going back and forth with them and the Thunder and changing his mind, I don't, until he's safely in New York with a signed contract, I'm never going to fully be on board, but it seems to be picking up actual, credible, legitimate steam.
Hasn't it?
Yep. Well,
before, I mean, the steam's been there for a long time.
It is, but now I feel like there's more drops coming. There's more heavy-handed rumors instead of it could be a possibility. It's turning into, well, his agent is telling people. His people are telling people this. It's more they do this slowly. They basically draw a little thin pencil line, and then over the course of the season they just kind of darken it over and over again until you really know it's there. Like, and I feel like that's what they're doing right now. The point's been there, but now they're just giving you a little bit more each time and digging in a little bit more each time.
Always remember this. The season started with Zach Lowe in his preview for this season specifically. He started and led that column with one sentence. Kevin Durant is going to sign with the Knicks after the season.
Yeah, I trust him on it. I do. It's hard for me to see myself buying all the way in at this point, but we've talked about before and how deeply we feel about it. But if there's anybody whose word you should be taking so far, it's got to be his. I mean, we've been speculating on it for several episodes now and everything like that, and it always seems to be something new. This is the topic that kind of Lowe himself just kind of can't stop talking about. So there's definitely something more than he knows that he's not letting on necessarily, but I guess in time, we'll all figure this all out in time. Hi. All right. Before we get out of here today, why don't we just kind of take a quick look at what the Knicks have ahead of them. So, play the Magic on Tuesday, play the Cavs on Thursday, the 28th, and then the Clippers are on the following Sunday, the 3rd. But, we're looking at the Magic game, we're looking at the Cavs game. Potentially, the Knicks could pile a couple of wins onto these recent ones that they've gotten as well. They have the Kings game after that Clippers game, and then it really comes down to that Suns matchup, which everyone kind of has circled on their calendar for the obvious tank implications and all of that. But, before we kind of get up to that point, we got the Magic and we have the Cavs before we're going to talk again. Do we have any particular thoughts on what the Knicks should be looking to carry over into these games?
A win. More wins.
More wins.
People are going to get angry at me, but yeah, I'm cool with it.
No, but I mean, like, you got the Magic, and they are... They're a pretty good rebounding team. You have, it's whether our guards are going to be able to play well against them. They don't really have too much on the forefront there. Can Mitch continue to rebound well? What's the starting lineup going to look like? I'm kind of interested to see what solidifies from what we brought over, what they were able to accomplish against the Spurs. Just like, can they bring it over to a team that's, not quite as talented? And, are we going to see some holdover effect from this game, or are they going to go back to being the same inconsistent players that we've been struggling with all season?
They're probably going to go back to being the same inconsistent players, but I'd like to think that, like Mitch has been playing really, really well since the trade. I'd like to think that that's going to more or less continue. Nights like this, I don't think he's going to keep having. This was not clearly his best night as an NBA player so far, but
he'll do this again. It will happen again.
No, I don't know. I don't know how. Like, it's not going to be a regular thing. Is my point. Like, he'll have good games, but it's going to be more like the normal good games we've seen over the last 5 or so games. But you'd like to think guys are going to start stringing it together. You'd like to think Knox is going to shoot above 40%. You'd like to think that Dotson is going to, not give you single digits. He's going to give you those 16, 17-point games regularly again. So Dennis Smith Jr., staying aggressive and really having full reign of the offense and getting comfortable with these guys like he has been. So maybe they start to play some good basketball. Hopefully, even if this was a loss, I would have enjoyed this game. Like, they can lose this way, sort of how we started the season, saying if we just enjoy the games, then they had, those good close losses. Like, if they do that, sure, whatever, but just play good basketball. If they're playing like this, all the kids are playing like this, and they lose, that's fine. It is what it is, but just play like winning basketball. That's it.
the Magic just smacked the Raptors today, but they didn't have Kawhi. And the Cavs have been playing actually a little bit better now because Kevin Love is back. But the Magic is it's a different type of matchup. Now you're going to have to deal with a lot of length. I mean, they're out there playing Jonathan Isaac at the 3, Gordon at the 4, and Vooch at the 5. So that's a lot of size and a lot. It'll be fun to see how the Knicks match up. It would be cool if Mitch would start because him versus I just want to see how he does. Like, just throw him in the fire and see how he does against one of the best offensive big men in the NBA. And whatever happens, happens. You're 12. You've won 12 games. It doesn't fucking matter. Let's see how it goes.
To me, it seems like what most matters to them, though, is going to be keeping DeAndre Jordan happy and keeping him in the starting lineup. So I just, if he comes back next game, then I don't see a road to Mitch starting. But if he's still out, then I think there's definitely a case for that. It's just I feel like Fizdale now has this kind of MO where Mitch is going to come off the bench. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. At the same time, I kind of do like him coming into the game at that point. I don't know. It's just I don't necessarily want to disrupt when he's getting his minutes necessarily.
All right. So why the coming off the bench and starting thing doesn't, like, Fizdale's whole thing about the fouls that he's been kind of pitching? It doesn't make sense. I looked up some stats before the game tonight. 12 games as a starter, Mitch has averaged 5.8 fouls per 36 and played 20 minutes per game. 31 games off the bench, Mitch has averaged 6.1 fouls per 36 and 16 minutes per game. So he actually fouls more when he comes off the bench than when he starts. And then in the 12 games Mitch has started, he's played 6 minutes in the first quarter, and he's averaged less than a foul per game. So none of that, what Fizdale's saying there, really makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, the foul issues are a problem for him. They've been much better of late, but it is obviously his biggest flaw, especially when he's hunting the blocks like that. So that's fine. I don't get what he was talking about with the off the bench or starting. I don't get that, but it is what it is. Mitch ended up playing most of the game and ended up having a really nice game. So I don't want to harp on it too much. Let's see what he does the next couple of games, but.
Can we just not lie, though? Like, there's information readily available to us now. Like, coaches can't do what they used to do in the past, where they could say whatever they want and we would just have to believe them at their word because we didn't have access to things.
Well, so the thing is, though, some people do. Like, just it's always been that way. And I think that teams and coaches know that sometimes is they know that just people will side with the organization over any, like, I remember me and who's that gentleman? John Schmelk? Is that the guy that you did the podcast with?
Yeah, from WFAN. Yes.
Yes. Correct. Yeah, and I remember me and him were talking about the Mudiay decision from Friday, and then people just get real angry when they respond to you sometimes, and they were just like, "Oh, so you mean to tell me you fake GMs know better than an NBA coach?" And I was like, guys, like, if the team was like a 30-win team, I would understand your argument. I would understand that they're sometimes winning, sometimes losing. Like, you can make that argument. When they are going to set a franchise worst record, this year, when they almost set almost tied the home losses tonight, when they just, what was the losing streak before they won? Was it 18?
It was 18 games at home. Yeah.
What was the other one that just the total losses? It was 17, right? I mean, it was a lot.
I think it was 17.
It was 17 or 18.
We're talking within this range.
Yeah. So like when they're doing this constantly, and we're talking about Mudiay, who was playing really horrific as that was happening before the injury, that's not the time to come after someone for Emmanuel Mudiay. It's not. At least wait until a night like tonight when he has 19 points and you can make like some kind of a weird claim. But like, people got really weird about like, oh, so you know better than playing Emmanuel Mudiay when he shouldn't be playing, basically. It's like, that's how you're going to die on? The brainy 11-win Knicks? Like, that's the not this year, not this roster, not with Emmanuel Mudiay. This is not the time for that argument. Just save it. Even people are tweeting at TKW and at myself, oh, I don't want to give up on Mudiay. I don't want to. Guys, like it's fine. He developed. He did a little bit. He got a little bit better. He's, I think, a regular bench player in the NBA now on most benches. I feel pretty comfortable saying that. But that's it. That's it. I know he's 22, and can he still develop? For sure. But he didn't take almost close to big enough of a stride this year to get the benefit of the doubt or to have that belief. Meanwhile, you have a guy who's younger and less experienced who's already significantly better than him in Dennis Smith Jr. So just save the time, save everybody the time. It's not the hill. It's just not the hill. We have 22 games left. It's just not the hill. Let's just all get through this last 22 games together, very carefree. Just enjoy the young guys, hopefully playing like this the rest of the season. But Mudiay is not the hill.
Yeah, and when he plays 15 minutes off the bench, we won't. If he's just playing 15 minutes off the bench, none of us are going to complain.
Yeah, like tonight, even if he missed a couple more shots tonight, tonight's fine. Come off the bench, shoot a little bit. He can score. I don't know why we pretend like he's the best passer. He can score. He's a scoring guard. I don't know why we have to dress it up like he's the best pure passer or point guard on the team. He's a scoring guard. Let him do that, how he can do that. That's how he's effective. That's how he's been effective this year, is he's been a better scorer. So I don't know why we have to dress it up, basically. Why does he need to be the Dennis Smith Jr. point guard? If you want him to come off the bench and score, just call it like that. Hey, MSG the Knicks and everybody else, they're the best passer nonsense with Mudiay, and I'm just very over it. He's not. It's okay. It's not that big of a deal.
I mean, I kind of just don't have anywhere to necessarily disagree with you. They've done fine by him. He's played here at a, somewhat below average level, but well higher than, his stock is way higher than what it was when he came into New York. And it's I don't think that when we acquired Emmanuel Mudiay, when we traded for him, our goal here was to make him, the next franchise point guard. I think the goal was, we're going to see if we can maybe squeeze out some value from you down the line. But if not, this is a low stakes team for you to try to, revive your NBA career. And to a degree, he's done that, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to, this is where he continues his career.
I have a question. At this point, I kind of think the organization did trade for him and was hoping he would be the franchise point guard, but they were at least knowledgeable enough to know that he wasn't. But I don't think it's out of the question that they were hoping that's what's going to happen.
I think to a degree, I think they took the chance thinking that there was obviously something there, like Anthony said. But, I think when they made that trade, I think it was with the intention of just getting any young guard because Frank was a question mark and still is. And I think they were just hey, he was 21 at the time when we traded for Mudiay. So just look, he's just a 21-year-old guard, a lottery guard sitting on the bench. Let's just get him for cheap, basically. So I think they took almost I wouldn't say we get Dennis Smith Jr. for cheap at all, even with the price the Mavericks paid for the contracts of Tim Hardaway Jr. and Courtney Lee. But, yeah, I think that's why it's a little bit different. Dennis, we actually got back because we needed something valuable for KP too. But Mudiay was hey, let's just kind of buy low, see what happens. And then, November and December happen and Mudiay plays well and you're oh, this is fun. And then he falls off a cliff and you're well, okay, we tried it. And there's no shame in that. I thought that was a fine price to pay for what they tried. But I think that a small part of them, they probably thought that there was a good starting caliber guard there at the very least, and it just didn't work out. I don't think it was a bad trade, but it happens.
Do we remember what we gave up for Mudiay?
Doug McDermott, solid player.
Yeah, but with any no real long term plans there, the risk was not there with taking on Mudiay.
No, hold on. I have the trade here.
Yeah.
I think, wasn't it just McDermott for Mudiay? Was there a pick involved?
It was a 3-way trade, I believe, right? But I don't think we gave up anything else.
Okay, hold on here. There was a second-round pick to Dallas, and the Knicks sent a second-round pick to Denver.
Okay.
Along with Nick Bucket.
I mean,
he's shooting 40% from three this year. I actually liked McDermott. I really liked McDermott last year.
Me too.
I think he has a place in this league as a role player.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that. I just, I think he recognized where the team was going to, and I have no doubt that he kind of asked more. I think it was more a mutual thing, I should say, between the two of them. But Mudiay just strikes me as just literally low risk. And I don't disagree with what Brian said either, where the Knicks probably traded for him, maybe not necessarily believing, but like hoping, and just like in the optimistic way that the Knicks have always operated, like hoping that Mudiay would develop into that, point guard of the future. But, it's like we're saying, I think they recognize too that they have better options they can be looking into. It's not really a slight against Mudiay, as a whole or as an NBA player. It's more of the Knicks have other options that would work better for them long term, and Mudiay could probably find something a little bit that suits him better elsewhere as well. I think this should be a more mutual thing, but there seems to be some other kind of lingering force that just demands that Emmanuel Mudiay be in the point guard conversation with the Knicks at any given time. I'm afraid they want to re-sign him. I'm afraid they consider it. If there wasn't so much, not confirmation, but if there wasn't so much promise in the whole Durant and Kyrie situation, I kind of wouldn't put it past them to throw a relatively team-friendly deal at Mudiay.
That $5 million option, I'm worried.
Yeah.
What, the exception?
Yeah.
So some of the fans, we tweeted an article out by our new writer Stephen Lewis, I believe, and
yes,
it was about not re-signing DeAndre Jordan, and a lot of fans kind of simply replied back, we'll just use the exception so it doesn't eat into the cap. And I was like, well, this is assuming that the man who's made over $10 million a year since 2011. Every year since 2011 is just going to suddenly want to take that. And I don't know that's... I think, if he knew that the gravity of the situation and that those guys were coming, I'm sure that there's a reasonable discount that he'd take. But I don't know that he's going to go all the way down to $5 million. I mean, he's 30 now. He's got a good contract or two left in him. I don't know that $5 million exceptions are really up his alley. So I don't know what he's going to cost, but I don't think that that's exactly realistic either.
And that would be an awful use of that exception by the Knicks.
Are you like full canter on him now with DeAndre Jordan? Is that where you got to?
He's defensive. I like him better on offense because he's not stopping the ball. His defense is somewhere in the range of Cantor. Yes, it's that bad. He just he'll just be like standing in a spot and he's not close enough to help towards the rim, and he's not on his man, and he's like, he can't close out the three. He just kind of stands in the middle of nowhere that's close enough that if the ball might come off the rim, he can grab it and make his rebounding numbers look really good. And he doesn't push up on screens. Like when he does, he actually moves his feet all right, and he laterally goes okay, but he just sits back and lets guys come to him, and he just gives up. He creates so many easy open looks for the other team. It's very hard for me to watch. So yes, I am somewhat near him, Cantor level.
I do happen to think, and you can yell at me, and we're just speculating now, but I'd have to imagine if you're going to sign those guys and you ask him to come back, I would imagine he's actually going to give you good effort. Again, we're just speculating, but that would be my hunch, because he was a very good player for a very long time, and he's not even old. and he hasn't had any injuries. He's still in shape. Like, there's no reason for him. It's just effort. He's simply just deciding to not try on a consistent basis. And I would happen to think that if all the spotlight was back on this team, that he would suddenly start trying again. But again, we are speculating. So
he did that. He did this stuff with Blake and CP3.
But like latter. Early on, he was better.
But it's been going with multiple teams and three straight teams.
I disagree that it would be a bad use of it, just because if he were to sign for $5 million, I'd have a really difficult time yelling about that. I just would.
You could get a much better, like $5 million is a good amount of money. Like
who would you take if you had to fill that spot?
You're really gonna make me look up free agents.
Yes.
2018-19 free agents. Like, for instance, this year, Nerlens Noel would have been a better use of that money.
Okay. No, that's fair.
So, and I think he went for like 2 years, $6 million with like a team option or something like that. All right, I'm just using Hoops Hype, even though that's not always the best place to go. So if I had a $5 million exception, oh, this is a shitty list. Never mind. All right, ESPN. Dwayne Dedman is a big man I would look at before DeAndre Jordan. That's one. I'm just going team by team. Jamari Carroll is a guy I would look at before DeAndre.
Carroll would be interesting because he's a little bit older. Dedman strikes me as someone who might be a little bit too, might be a little bit above that price range. But
Robin Lopez, bring him back if he was willing to. I'd rather have him.
Yeah.
Robin Lopez is better than DeAndre Jordan at this point. When DeAndre Jordan tried and was good, he was not better than him.
Robin Lopez has been having a pretty decent year, but even still, I mean,
that would be a top
Dedman, yes. I think there are players, is your point. So I think you're correct still, but
Kevin Looney would be one, and I'd be willing to do more than a 1-year deal with him. If you want a backup center, that would be a great target for you.
I still, even with these guys, like, I still wouldn't hate it. It wouldn't be enough for me it would be just a non-factor for me to be like, okay, I see why you did it, but whatever.
Would Bojan Bogdanovic from the Pacers get more than $5 million?
Yes.
Patrick Beverley?
I'd have to imagine Beverly's going to get more.
Yeah.
Beverly might be close.
Garrett Temple.
He's around there. Like, he's probably like a 5 to 7.
So Garrett Temple, Reggie Bullock, guys like that, I would 100% pay over DeAndre Jordan. I'm going to get crushed for this. Dear God.
No, I don't think you're wrong about that point.
You're not wrong, but like, because the people who are going to argue for him are sort of technically right. Like, he still is actually a good player. He's just really not trying, and then you could make your point sort of either way based on that. Like, how much you value the not trying. Like, is that going to seep over to next year with a better team, hopefully? Or is that just like, he's just, okay, you know what? Now we have a legit team. I'm going to try. You know, and I think that's kind of where, like, for me, I would assume that common sense is if you were to accept a deal and come back, that we're going to get an actual basketball player, you know, and not just somebody who doesn't want to give their all at the end of an 11-win season.
Is Al Farouk Aminu going for more than $5 million at this point?
Not really.
Yeah, I would say
think so. He's around there.
That's a very good name of someone.
I would get him for $5 million if that's what we're talking.
Eddie Green, I don't think he goes for $5 million, but he might be willing to come at a cheaper price to play for a winner and some long-term security. That's probably the guy.
Hometown team.
That's probably the dude that scrolling through all that would be my first call, Danny Green, and see what he would say.
Come home, Danny. Anyway, do you guys have any parting thoughts before we head out of here tonight?
I'll let you be done with it.
I appreciate it. All right. Kyle mentioned it before, but I just want to mention it again that if you guys need if you guys are starting off the day with a good Knicks read, the one that I'm going to recommend to you is Stephen Lewis's piece on the Knicks wall of why the Knicks should not re-sign DeAndre Jordan. Kind of segues perfectly from our conversation we were just having, but dig into that a little bit deeper. Steven did the work for you. Just check out what he's got to say on this. While you're there, just make sure you're checking out the rest of our content. Subscribe to everything we're doing here. Leave us reviews. Leave us comments. Tweet at us. We want to, we want to hear what you're thinking. So, until next time, we'll talk to you all later.